Neil Pringle on BBC Sussex.
Brighton could become the first UK city in which 90% of people with HIV are getting the right medical treatment. It's basically the aim of a campaign launched by the City Council, and Fast Track Cities are sort of a network of cities committed to achieving the targets 90-90-90, which we'll explain in just a bit. Daniel Yates from Brighton Hove City Council is in the studio, along with Mark Ward, who contracted HIV after contaminated blood. Good morning to both of you. Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Daniel, let me start with you. Tell me, what are the 90-90-90 targets then?
So the 90-90 targets have been set as part of the Paris Declaration a couple of years ago. So cities around the world are coming together to try to ensure that 90% of people who are HIV infected are aware of their HIV infection, that 90% of those are on appropriate treatment, and for those people, that 90% of them are achieving undetectable viral load.
Okay. There's an obvious question here. How do you know that it's 90% if they're undiagnosed? Presumably, we don't know how many people are undiagnosed with HIV, don't we?
Exactly, but that's where epidemiologists come in. You know, sort of the experts with the numbers do run the statistics. They look at a population.
They say, we reckon this number of people in Brighton and Hove will have HIV, and then you look at the number who've actually are on the books, basically.
Exactly.
Where are we at the moment?
Well, across the UK we're at about 84-85%. So we're not that far away from it. But the important thing is making sure that everybody is aware of the right messages to make sure that they're making sure they get tested. Because the best way to know if you're HIV positive is to have had an HIV test. You know, and still there are groups of people who are maybe choosing not to, or may not even realise that there's a chance that they could be.
Mark, tell me when you suspected that there's something wrong with you. What happened? It was after blood, yeah?
That's right, yeah. Well, I was actually born with severe haemophilia, so I've grown up in hospital, and the treatment for my haemophilia, which back in the 1970s and 80s was made through blood products. So it almost immediately we knew there was alarm bells, because hepatitis B was rife at that point in time in the 70s. And then, unfortunately, bang, AIDS hit. And we were caught in the middle of it because the blood was being imported. It was being taken from prisoners here in the UK as well as across the world. And they literally just took the blood and pumped it straight into the veins of little boys like myself. And I was 12 when I was infected with AIDS. I was told I wouldn't leave school. And, well, many, many years later, here I am sitting talking to you. But
how old are you now?
47.
I know that's a very unfair question
at this time in the morning.
But it does illustrate the point that, you know, as we all know, 30 years ago it was seen as a death sentence. So it must have been very frightening at the time.
It was terrifying. I mean, and also you see, when you look back, the way that HIV was portrayed to the world, it was on the front pages of the media, the papers, this big gay plague that it was targeting certain people. And unfortunately, again, with the haemophilia community, was that we'd had this done to us. There was so many rumours and things floating around telling us what was true, what wasn't true, what they did know, didn't know. But at the same time, we were labelled, and that has stuck. And here we are, 30 plus years down the line. And yes, I'm so grateful to be here. But the stigma of HIV has not just affected people like myself living with HIV, but the whole entire community. If you say that you have haemophilia, and immediately people jump to the conclusion, well, you must have AIDS. Yeah. And the same label applies to the gay community.
So, Daniel, if the aim of Brighton is to be one of these fast track cities, to hit these targets, you've still got to break down that stigma, don't you, to get people to get tested? I mean, how do you must want mass testing, don't you? I mean, how do we achieve that figure then?
What we have to do, like Mark said, is we have to break down the stigma associated with HIV. We have to stop people being scared of taking a test. We have to be people have to stop people being scared of the outcome of taking that test. We have to explain to them that there's effective treatments available, that there's appropriate support available, and mostly what we have to do is we have to engage the community. This isn't something that the council or the NHS services can do to the community. This is something we have to do with the community. We have to make the community aware that taking an HIV test, that considering HIV as part of your ongoing health is the same as you might do taking a blood cholesterol test. There's no stigma associated with having high or low blood cholesterol. But, you know, Mark and I grew up around the same time. We both remember the fear and the abject fear that was instilled into a whole generation of people by the marketing of the concerns around AIDS and HIV at that time. We have to break that down, and we have to make people and the whole community engage in this project. This isn't a project just for one part of the community. This is a project for the whole city.
Listening to that is Jason Warriner, who's a clinical director and lead nurse for the Sussex Beacon, supporting people with HIV. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Why is it so important that you get up to 90% and maybe even beyond of people? Yeah. So in other words, so that we have more people who know they've got it. Why is it important?
The key important thing is so we can end the AIDS epidemic. The decision around the fast-track cities, this came out of the Paris Agreement in December 2014, and it's taken a global approach to managing the HIV epidemic. If we can get 90% of people tested, 90% treated, and those 90% an undetectable viral load, and that's the amount of virus in the body, we can reduce transmission within the UK and globally. And this is working to a target of 95 in 2030. So it's a lot to do, but actually it's one way of getting all the prevention, all the treatment joined up and people working together so we can really tackle the AIDS epidemic globally.
So there's sort of like a critical mass of people. Once you get up to a certain amount who know, then the disease will start contracting in numbers. Is that the idea? That you get fewer new cases?
Yeah. What it is, if somebody's diagnosed, accessing care and treatment, and has had what we call an undetectable viral load for a 6-month period, there's no risk of them transmitting the virus forward to any other person. Mm-hmm. In the UK, we've got around 110,000 people living with HIV. In 2015, just over 6,000 people were diagnosed. Out of the original number of 110,000, 17% of people don't know they're living with the virus. They've never tested, they've never thought they may be at risk, or they just don't feel testing is appropriate for them at this time. So it's tackling that number.
I mean, a lot of it, an hour ago we were talking about this. It was sort of like the stigma of what HIV was rather than what it is now. It's almost like an outdated view of, oh my God, I don't want to even know. What does it mean if you took the test and someone says, well, no, actually you have got HIV? What life can you expect?
Right, if you access care and treatment, you're looking at a normal life expectancy, the same as anybody else. The key thing is supporting people through initial diagnosis, getting them into care and treatment, and then having conversations who they tell and share their diagnosis with. Sadly, within the UK, we still have a lot of discrimination and stigma against people living with HIV, and it's about raising awareness, education, so people are informed about how HIV is transmitted, but more importantly, how it's not transmitted. And a lot of people still base their knowledge of HIV from the 1980s and early 90s when it was a new epidemic starting in the UK.
I mean, does everybody get on with the medication, or do there are some side effects and the like?
Yeah, if you look at all medicines, every medicine has side effects. The HIV medicines have side effects. Now we're looking, the treatments develop so much, people maybe just be on tablets once a day or twice a day. The side effects have reduced, and it's supporting people now to live healthy lives and be back in work, employment, and doing what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm. When someone gets the diagnosis, and you must have been through this, I mean, that must be such a hard thing to tell people.
It is, and it's a key point of somebody's life. They never forget where they were, who told them they were HIV positive. HIV testing's developed over the years, so now we can take a drop of blood from somebody's finger and get the result in 1 minute. While the
I've done it here in the studio. I've done it in the studio.
So, and every time you tell somebody they've just been diagnosed with HIV and explain the results and everything to them, it's a range of emotions that individual goes through, from the end of their life, total upset, to other people, actually, okay, what's the next step? Very straightforward, to people becoming very angry as well and blaming themselves. And so he's been having that experience and skills to talk to people about it. But it's also, before you do the test, having an open conversation. And sometimes with what people tell you when you're doing the pre-test discussion, actually there may be indicators they could be positive, and the test would be what we call a HIV positive result. So it's preparing them.
How great would it be that Brighton was the first UK city to be a fast-track city then?
Oh, it would be amazing. In the UK, we've got the best HIV treatment in the world. Brighton is amazing for the HIV care and treatment, based in the hospital, the community teams, the Sussex Beacon. And it's an opportunity for us to work closer together, the local authorities, everybody, to really get people tested, get them on treatment, but also challenge discrimination and stigma. And if we can do that in Brighton, that can be rolled out across the UK.
Thank you very much indeed. Keep up the good work. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Jason Warriner there from Sussex Beacon.
This is BBC Sussex.